Before we dive into the heart of this message, let's pause and genuinely connect with what you've been feeling. Have you ever felt that unmistakable sensation, that almost electrical charge in the atmosphere, suggesting that you're constantly on someone's mind, yet they remain stubbornly out of sight? Why does that whisper of anticipation persist, even as the physical world offers no tangible evidence of change? It's a profound question, and the answer is rooted in a significant internal conflict unfolding right now. Someone very close to your energy is engaged in a silent, powerful internal war. This isn't a simple disagreement. It's a fierce battle between their deepest fears and the undeniable pull of their heart's true desire to be with you. This person is stuck between the paralyzing anxiety of being vulnerable and the terrifying reality of watching you walk away. And today, this long-standing, exhausting conflict is finally being resolved. The divine disruption and the fear of lost chosen one, an energy has been circling you, subtle yet insistent, like the quiet build-up before a storm. You may have tried to rationalize it away, dismissing it as mere imagination or wishful thinking, but your spirit knows better. That persistent feeling of being monitored or contemplated is real. It's the echo of a profound spiritual stirring within this person. Divine intervention, guided by God, has been actively working to compel them toward a decisive move in your direction. The reason for their hesitation and this new sense of urgency isn't about their feelings for you, which have always been strong. It's about a deeply rooted fear of losing what they have come to understand is a sacred, heaven-placed connection. This realization wasn't a slow, gentle awakening. It hit them with the sudden, undeniable force of divine clarity, perhaps even before you started your day. The spiritual blinders they wore have been ripped away, and the consequence of their inaction, the thought of you becoming a permanent memory, a what-if, has become an intolerable burden. That subtle, internal tremor you've experienced recently, it wasn't your own confusion. It was the reverberation of their heart finally aligning with its purpose, shedding the layers of self-protection. God has been relentlessly illuminating every excuse, every patch of darkness where their hesitation hid, pushing them to embrace a courage they previously lacked. They are no longer on the fence. They are standing on the precipice of a decision that holds the power to reshape the entire landscape of your shared future. Listen with the utmost intentionality, because nothing from this point forward should be considered a coincidence. There are specific, preordained moments in every life when God deliberately breaks the routine to deliver a spiritual answer, a key your soul has been waiting for, and this is that sacred moment. The atmosphere surrounding you has been visibly or invisibly preparing for this shift. That sensation of being observed, not stalked, but carefully studied, is the confirmation that they are actively strategizing their approach. They are mentally rehearsing the difficult words, weighing the possibility of letting their silence become a lifelong regret. Your unique presence, your energy signature, has ignited something foundational within their spirit. The pressure of urgency, the internal pressure within this person, is now peaking, reaching a critical mass of urgency, profound longing, and undeniable conviction. All these forces are converging into one simple, terrifying truth for them. If I do not move now, I risk losing them completely, permanently. This overwhelming sense of being pushed is the true reason you are reading this message. Your presence here is not a result of a random algorithm or a fleeting moment of curiosity. It's because your spirit recognized a truth that was specifically, divinely designated for you. What is about to unfold will provide the crucial context for their previous actions, why they stalled, why they retreated, why they remained frozen for so long, and, most importantly, why God is now applying a force that is genuinely irresistible. Hold your attention steady and stay fully present. The next insights will likely change your perception of this connection, offering a clarity that feels utterly prophetic. Before we proceed to the deeper layers of this revelation, let's anchor this moment with intention. If the current words are already stirring recognition within your soul, Take a moment to seal this alignment. Like this video, subscribe if you are new to this community, and leave a comment with 99 below. This number, 99, represents spiritual alignment and the completion of a cycle. By commenting, you declare your spirit's readiness for what heaven is bringing forth, accelerating the path to manifestation. Let this act be your personal confirmation, chosen one. There exists a singular, defining moment in every connection meant for destiny, where the stress of internal resistance becomes too intense to bear. It's when the logical mind can no longer silence the truths the heart has been desperately screaming in secret. This person has reached that precise moment. It wasn't a gradual slide. It was a sudden, seismic crack appearing in the bedrock of their certainty. They initially tried to maintain a deliberate emotional distance. They meticulously planned to move forward, convincing themselves that life would eventually stabilize, and the ache of your absence would naturally dissipate if they simply focused on distractions. However, every single attempt they made to erase you collapsed under its own empty weight. Every distraction they pursued felt fundamentally hollow. Every new relationship or conversation they entertained carried the unmistakable shadow of your profound presence. You must understand this clearly. They were never truly running from you. They were running from the profound impact you had on them, from the unsettling depth of emotion you awakened, and from the superior version of themselves they didn't feel adequately prepared or worthy to become. Their retreat was not because the connection was fragile. On the contrary, it was because the bond was too real, too raw, and too profoundly exposing. The cost of hesitation, you reached into and touched corners of their soul that they had meticulously sealed off, perhaps for years, even a lifetime. The idea of being truly, unequivocally seen by you frightened them far more deeply than the prolonged silence ever could. But God, in His infinite wisdom, knows precisely how to engage with a heart paralyzed by fear. So He implemented something strategically unexpected. He allowed this person to feel the true, agonizing cost of their hesitation, not as a harsh punitive measure, but as a powerful, undeniable revelation. They began waking up with a crushing, indescribable emotional weight. Genuine joy became muted. Professional or personal achievements felt disappointingly incomplete. The world looked precisely the same, yet nothing felt right. Your absence didn't just create an empty space in their life. It created an agonizing clarity. They were forced to realize that life without you was not a peaceful existence. It was quieter, yes, but in a way that profoundly unsettled them. The silence they sought was not calm. It became emotionally suffocating. The harder they tried to self-convince that they were perfectly fine, the more God pressed into their spirit, amplifying the fundamental truth they had been expertly avoiding. You are in the process of losing someone that heaven explicitly entrusted to you. This realization cut them deeper than any fear of emotional vulnerability ever could. The mere thought of a stranger discovering the beautiful parts of you that they cherish secretly, of someone else receiving the gentle, soft moments they took for granted, of another person stepping into the space their soul had already imprinted, that thought broke something essential inside them. What once manifested as a fear of failure, the fear of trying, has now profoundly transformed into a soul-crushing fear of regret, a regret that could potentially last their entire life. They began to see what had been previously hidden, that you are not a phase, not a temporary comfort, and are fundamentally irreplaceable. You are a divine assignment, intricately woven into their purpose in a way they didn't comprehend until God revealed the devastating consequences of their inaction. That, and only that, is what finally triggered the current, undeniable shift, a holy, spiritual disruption, a piercing, high-pitched alarm, a breaking point where their soul, finally exhausted, declared enough. Their fear of ultimately losing you has at last outshouted every single excuse, every doubt, and every protective wall they constructed. Consequently, something essential inside them is now refusing to remain still. Their heart is now moving much faster than their logic can process. They are facing the profound truth that if they genuinely desire a shared future with you, they absolutely cannot afford to delay their move for another day. Stay with me, chosen one, because what has awakened inside this person is just the genesis of this transformation. Something even deeper is about to rise to the surface, and when you grasp it, you will finally understand why this unique connection was never, ever meant to fade away. The hidden work of the silence, while you were struggling to interpret the stillness, while you were inwardly questioning whether the bond had completely dissolved into nothingness, something profoundly sacred was actively unfolding behind a veil you simply couldn't see. God was not idle. Heaven was not silent. The external silence you experienced was the precise, necessary space God required to perform deep, internal work within this person's soul. In the quiet, hidden sanctuary of their spirit, where no human friend, no superficial distraction, and no self-constructed illusion could interfere, God began systematically dismantling the protective layers they had spent years building. He intentionally touched on memories they had tried so hard to bury, emotions they pretended not to feel, and harsh truths they avoided because confronting them meant confronting their own profound vulnerability. And every single time they attempted to escape these internal, insistent echoes, God patiently pulled them back, not with cruelty, but with divine precision, deep love, and that unmistakable, persistent pressure that only spiritual truth can generate. Suddenly, they began vividly remembering specific simple moments with you that they never expected to revisit, not the grand, dramatic gestures, but the quiet, intense ones. God led them back to the softness in your voice when you genuinely cared, the way your mere presence shifted the entire atmosphere of a room, the sheer peace you carried without even trying, the core realization, the way they felt more themselves with you than with anyone else they had ever known. These memories did not just randomly appear. They aggressively resurfaced like profound spiritual fingerprints that God steadfastly refused to let fade. The harder they tried to silence them, the louder and more insistent they became. The more desperately they attempted to distract themselves, the exponentially stronger the emotional pull became. They tried to numb it, outrun it, and intellectually rationalize it away. But the question remains, how can any person run from something that was strategically planted by heaven itself? What God establishes through divine intention cannot be erased. What God specifically connects through soul alignment cannot be severed by mere human avoidance. Alignment, not coincidence. This powerful internal awakening was not born from simple nostalgia. It was not a moment of emotional weakness or a lonely night inspiring old feelings. No, this was a clear example of divine strategy. God patiently waited until their heart was quiet enough, allowing the fundamental truth to echo within without any earthly interruption. And when it hit, it impacted them with devastating force. It simultaneously illuminated everything they had stubbornly refused to admit, that your connection was never a coincidence. It was a profound alignment, that the peace they effortlessly felt in your presence was not temporary. It was a deep spiritual grounding, that the clarity you naturally brought into their life wasn't just emotional comfort. It was their ultimate purpose, revealing itself through your presence. As this intense inner transformation continued, something else, equally significant, began to happen, something subtle but now utterly impossible to ignore. A profound conviction began forming deep inside them. This didn't arise from guilt or external pressure, but from a clear, unshakable realization. The realization that God had placed something truly extraordinary in their path, and they had carelessly mishandled it. They overlooked its significance. They critically underestimated its depth. And now, the sheer, undeniable weight of that truth is sitting heavily in their chest, a burden they can no longer deny or deflect. They now possess a stark understanding that to remain silent is to ultimately lose you. To delay any further is to risk everything heaven painstakingly orchestrated. To continue pretending they don't feel what they undoubtedly feel is to purposefully walk away from a blessing God Himself actively pushed toward them. That acute, painful awareness is what has shaken them fully awake. It is actively rewriting their deepest priorities. It is aggressively stripping away their pride. It is forcefully compelling them to choose courage over fear, truth over avoidance, and action over paralysis. And here is the element they never, ever expected. The more they attempt to resist this divine stirring, the more intense and undeniable it becomes. God is showing them with absolute clarity that certain divine opportunities do not return in the same perfect way twice. Certain powerful connections do not regenerate if you carelessly neglect them. Certain souls, especially a chosen one like you, are never placed in their life casually. They now know with a clarity that eliminates all doubt that if they do not move, they will forfeit something heaven intentionally placed in their path, something their spirit recognizes as absolutely irreplaceable. Chosen one, this internal awakening is not slowing down its intensity. It is accelerating and intensifying, which means that what comes next will pull them closer to you in a way neither of you could have possibly predicted. Stay completely with me, because the next shift God is orchestrating is even more powerful and externally noticeable. Something profound began to manifest inside this person, chosen one, something they genuinely didn't anticipate, something they weren't remotely prepared for, something they tried desperately and repeatedly to intellectually explain away as simple emotion. As they navigated their daily life, meeting new people, engaging in surface conversations, filling their schedule with relentless noise to successfully drown out the internal discomfort, a distinct, repetitive pattern emerged, a pattern they found absolutely impossible to escape. The comparison you always win every single connection they attempted to form or maintain felt fundamentally flat when compared to you. Every conversation felt shallow and meaningless. Every moment they spent with someone else felt chronically incomplete, like a complex puzzle permanently missing its single, crucial centerpiece. They didn't want to admit it, but their heart began relentlessly making the comparison for them, quietly yet persistently. Where others could only provide momentary distraction, you provided deep, necessary grounding. Where others generated tension or stress, you effortlessly created profound calm. Where others felt temporary and transient, you felt strikingly eternal. And this wasn't because you are perfect. It was because your sheer presence awakened crucial parts of them that had been dormant for years. You touched their deepest spirit, not just their surface emotions. You spoke directly to the version of them they meticulously hid from the outside world. You made them feel seen, understood, and fundamentally safe in ways they genuinely did not believe were still possible. This devastating realization did not strike them like sudden lightning. Instead, it developed slowly and surely, like the gradual, unmistakable arrival of dawn, subtle at first, then overwhelmingly undeniable. Slowly, their confusion and self-doubt began to dissolve, and in its place came a clarity so sharp and powerful, it left them emotionally breathless. The core truth: you were never a problem or a distraction. You were the blessing they felt completely unready to accept. They mistakenly believed you were complicating their already complex life, when, in reality, you were strategically anchoring it. They incorrectly thought the intensity of your connection was inherently dangerous when, in fact, it was pure, divine alignment. They foolishly believed that distance would inevitably weaken the bond when it only served to intensify what was already profoundly written in their soul. The actual reason they couldn't possibly forget you wasn't emotional dependence or simple longing. It was spiritual recognition. Their spirit recognized and responded to you long before their conscious mind could fully comprehend the meaning of the bond. And spiritual bonds, once sealed by the divine, do not simply break because the human heart panics or withdraws. That is precisely why every attempt they made to move on from you collapsed quickly, like a fragile house built precariously on sand. They tried to force themselves into situations that seemed logical, into connections that looked impressive on paper, and into distractions that promised momentary relief, but absolutely nothing held, nothing truly satisfied, and nothing could adequately fill the spiritual space you occupied. Their heart utterly refused to let go of what heaven had so clearly sealed. The inevitable confession, and then came the profound emotional confession they never once spoke out loud, but which intensely echoed inside them with relentlessly intensifying force. I still want you. I still choose you. This wasn't a sign of weakness. It wasn't simple, base longing. It was the absolute truth powerfully rising through the cracks of their denial and stubborn resistance. They now clearly see that the peace they felt with you was not mere chemistry. It was alignment. The clarity you brought was not coincidence. It was powerful divine orchestration, and the love they felt was not impulsive or temporary. It was their very soul recognizing a familiar, eternal light. In the face of this overwhelming realization, something shifted permanently within their being. They finally stopped asking themselves, "Why can't I forget them?" and instead started asking the question, "Why did I ever think I should?" That single question, that sudden, monumental shift in perspective, shattered the long-held illusion that walking away from you was a sign of strength. They now clearly understand it was nothing but fear. They now see that losing you isn't just a remote risk. They feel it intensely as a painful wound before it has even had a chance to fully happen. But now, something far deeper is forming beneath this newfound clarity. Something that will challenge them, push them, and ultimately propel them toward you with a powerful, unstoppable urgency. Stay with me, because what their heart is about to realize next is even more vital. It's the pivotal moment where raw emotion finally transforms into concrete, undeniable action. And chosen one, that is the exact point where your shared destiny begins to powerfully change course. There eventually comes a defining moment, chosen one, when a person fully realizes that their pervasive fear has successfully stolen far more from them than any potential heartbreak ever could. This person has been living in that painful realization, quietly, painfully, piece by piece, for far too long. For the longest period, they were mentally chained to powerful, invisible battles. Fear of rejection, fear of fully opening their heart, fear of inevitably repeating old, destructive cycles they had sworn they would avoid. Fear successfully convinced them that silence was the safest option. Fear convinced them that maintaining emotional distance was the only true protection. Fear convinced them that actively suppressing their deepest emotions somehow made them stronger and more capable. But fear always lies, and God, in His mercy, is systematically exposing those lies, one painful layer at a time. The collapse of fear, this inner, transformative work, didn't begin loudly or dramatically. It began like a small, persistent whisper, a sudden, intense discomfort with all their old behavioral patterns, a relentless restlessness that grew more aggressive each passing day, a powerful, sinking feeling that their silence was no longer merely neutral. It was becoming fundamentally destructive to their own well-being. God strategically started illuminating the painful consequences of their persistent hesitation, not with judgment, but with simple, devastating truth. The truth that their silence is, in fact, a definitive decision. The truth that pretending not to care is still a conscious, deliberate choice. The truth that actively choosing fear over a genuine connection is still an active choice for profound loss. And this person, they have finally felt the crippling weight of that truth. They began to fully grasp that simply waiting passively is far more dangerous than actively trying and risking their pride. That completely missing an opportunity that heaven carefully orchestrated hurts infinitely more than risking their personal pride. That the pain and regret of losing you would undoubtedly haunt them far longer than any temporary discomfort of being vulnerable. They started clearly seeing that their avoidance was not strategically protecting them. It was actively sabotaging their life and their ultimate happiness, and God, operating with perfect mercy, has been strategically stripping away their every single excuse, one after the next. He is actively dismantling the fear that constantly whispered, "You're not good enough." He is dismantling the fear that loudly insisted, "They will reject you." He is dismantling the fear that said, "You'll ruin everything again." He is dismantling the fear that commanded, "Stay quiet, it's safer this way." Every single fear is collapsing like a weak wall under intense divine pressure, and as those crippling walls come down, something infinitely powerful rises vigorously in their place: courage. Not a reckless, impulsive courage, but a deeply grounded, spiritual courage born from the intense realization that God is now definitively calling them to act. They are beginning to clearly see that faith without active movement will never successfully build anything real or lasting. They can physically feel heaven strongly tugging at their spirit, making it absolutely impossible to hide, impossible to stall, and impossible to pretend you do not matter to them. The intense shift inside them is now undeniable. They are noticing that their heart now beats differently when they think of you, not with raw panic, but with renewed purpose. Action over words, their mind no longer even attempts to talk them out of what they profoundly feel. Instead, it is actively urging them to courageously make things right. They are finally realizing that avoiding you did not bring them clarity, but approaching you might just bring them ultimate redemption. And here's the part that fundamentally changes the trajectory of everything. They no longer simply want to tell you they have changed internally. They want, with every fiber of their being, to actively show you. Words suddenly feel too small, too fragile, too unreliable when compared to the magnitude of the spiritual transformation God has facilitated within them. They want their forthcoming actions to carry the profound weight that their prolonged silence absolutely could not. They want their consistent presence to actively erase the emotional damage their hesitation regretfully caused, because they now fully understand something crucial and non-negotiable. God does not grant His ultimate blessing to relationships built on fearful avoidance or emotional games. God only blesses relationships built on honesty, vulnerability, accountability, and divine alignment. They finally see with startling clarity that stepping decisively toward you is not merely an act of emotional bravery. It is, first and foremost, an act of spiritual obedience. Heaven is actively pushing them forward, steadying their unsure steps, clearing their mind of all residual doubt, softening their once hardened heart, and urgently directing them toward the fundamental truth they have buried for far too long. They feel it, they know it, they can no longer deny it. A pivotal decision is rapidly forming inside them, one they can no longer possibly postpone. A profound shift is rising, one that will very soon break through the surface of your shared reality. And chosen one, what happens when fear finally and completely collapses inside someone who loves you so deeply? What happens when genuine courage actively replaces all hesitation? What happens when destiny's call becomes louder and more insistent than any residual doubt? Stay with me, because the definitive answer is about to unfold in a way that will permanently change everything for both of you. Chosen one, you are standing much closer to a defining turning point than your logical mind can currently process. While you have been diligently trying to make peace with the relentless uncertainty, while you have been training your weary heart to live its life without any expectations, this person has been quietly, internally crossing an invisible, non-negotiable line. The imminence of the move, they are no longer merely feeling things deeply. They are diligently preparing to do something tangible about those feelings. In the unseen background of their daily life, something concrete is forming. It could be a long, thoughtful message they keep typing and immediately deleting. It could be an intense confession they are mentally rehearsing repeatedly. It could be a heartfelt apology that fully carries the painful weight of everything they never sincerely acknowledged. Or it could be a significant gesture that goes far beyond any casual contact you've experienced before. This will not be a random "hey" or a vague checking in a text. What is coming is deeply intentional, shaped, and almost spiritually sculpted by the relentless conviction God has been meticulously building inside them. Their spirit is quite literally trembling, not because they are still confused, but because they finally and completely understand the sheer, sacred magnitude of this moment. They can feel the powerful pressure of heaven pressing intensely on their chest, urgently compelling them in a language only the heart can truly hear. Do not lose this. Do not stay silent. Move now. Every potential delay now feels exponentially heavier. Every passing day without speaking to you feels precisely like they are recklessly gambling with something profoundly holy. They wake up intensely thinking about the crucial words they need to say. They go to sleep mentally replaying scenes with you, meticulously imagining exactly how the first conversation might unfold. They are carefully considering the perfect timing, the exact words, and the necessary tone, because they know, with deep certainty, that this is not just another trivial interaction. It is a fundamental doorway, a doorway that leads either into profound restoration or into devastating regret. And this time they possess a fierce, absolute determination to avoid regret. Unlike their previous tentative attempts, there will be no ambiguous mixed signals, no half-hearted efforts, and no shallow, confusing words that leave you more emotionally confused than you were before. They are completely exhausted by their own paralyzing inconsistency. They are utterly tired of being the primary reason for the emotional distance. They are truly tired of running from something that their deepest soul keeps persistently running back to in secret. Therefore, they are strategically planning an approach that authentically reflects the deep internal change that has occurred. It might arrive as a long, detailed message where, for the very first time, they genuinely drop their guard and express the depth of what they suppressed. It might be a heartfelt voice note, because text feels far too small to carry the monumental emotional weight of what they desperately need to convey. It might be a sudden phone call out of nowhere at a moment you least expect, but which your spirit will immediately recognize. It might even be them physically showing up in person, led by an intense, spiritual pull so powerful that staying away is simply no longer a viable option. Whatever final form it takes, it carries one fundamental essence: clarity. No more emotional breadcrumbs, no more unsettling confusion, no more energy that feels warmly inviting one day and chillingly cold the next. The inevitable truth they know that if they are to come toward you now, it must be with a level of profound honesty and complete transparency that perfectly matches the depth of the spiritual work God has been conducting inside them. They don't just want to reopen a fractured line of communication, they want to earnestly rebuild lost trust. They want to transform the frustrating "what if" into an undeniable "here we are." And as they move closer to that final, pivotal decision, everything in their environment is echoing the exact same fundamental truth: the time is now. Songs, dreams, random conversations, chance words they overhear, all of it seems to persistently circle back to the essential idea of courage, reconciliation, and the ultimate necessity of not letting fear make the final, devastating call. Yes, it still genuinely scares them, but the terrifying idea of watching you confidently walk into someone else's arms scares them infinitely more. The potential reality of never truly knowing what could have been built with you is what relentlessly haunts them in a profound way they can no longer possibly ignore. And here is the crucial thing you need to understand, chosen one. What is rapidly moving toward you is not emotional chaos. It is divine alignment. It is not another exhausting emotional storm. It is a powerful, undeniable divine shift. This approach is not simply their own spontaneous idea. It is entirely heaven-guided, heaven-timed, and heaven-backed. You may soon begin to feel a sudden, intense anticipation in your spirit, a strange, profound sensitivity, or unexpected waves of emotion that strike you out of nowhere. That is not random chance. That is your discerning soul sensing the movement of destiny before your physical eyes can register it. Because in the unseen, important steps are actively being taken, stubborn pride is being completely swallowed, heartfelt words are being perfectly formed, and everything in their complex journey is narrowing sharply toward one pivotal, life-altering moment where they finally, definitively choose to move toward you instead of retreating. The vital question that now hangs vibrating in the air is not if they will move, but precisely how and when that decisive step will powerfully break through the surface of your reality. And chosen one, when that moment finally and irrevocably arrives, it will not feel small or insignificant. It will feel like something fundamental in your life story has just shifted tracks permanently. Breathe for a long moment, chosen one, because everything your soul has been intensely sensing, everything your intuition has been desperately whispering, everything your spirit has been trying so hard to decode, absolutely none of it was an illusion. None of it was simple wishful thinking. It was powerful confirmation, a gentle divine nudge, a clear signal that heaven has been actively orchestrating far more in the unseen realm than you could ever possibly imagine. Your story is waking up. You did not simply stumble into this critical message. You were specifically guided, led, and powerfully pulled into perfect alignment with a spiritual truth your own heart was already meticulously preparing to receive. What has unfolded in this narrative is not random chance. The confusing silence was not abandonment, it was refinement. The frustrating distance was not rejection, it was purification. The difficult waiting was not punishment. It was crucial preparation. This connection did not simply fade away, it profoundly evolved. It successfully grew roots far deeper than mere emotion, deeper than simple longing, deeper than anything the human mind can accurately label. It maturely strengthened under immense pressure. It successfully transformed under God's perfect timing. And now, at this very moment, it stands firmly at the definitive threshold of a complete and total awakening. You are rapidly approaching a moment that your spirit has intuitively felt coming for a long time, long before your conscious mind knew how to accurately name it. A truly decisive step, a courageous, undeniable move, a confession shaped not by desperate longing but by profound revelation, by the fear of losing what God Himself powerfully joined together. That initial, crippling fear ultimately became the catalyst. That fear became the final, necessary doorway, and that powerful fear, completely transformed by divine clarity, has now become the unstoppable force actively pushing this person into tangible action. Chosen one, step boldly into this next season of your life with unshakable faith, not lingering hesitation. What is rapidly approaching you is not temporary or fragile. It is not uncertain or weak. It is intensely intentional, heaven-backed and purpose-aligned. This is not a painful chapter tragically repeating itself. This is a chapter successfully completing itself. A definitive shift written long before either of you fully understood the spiritual assignment. So, if your spirit feels that unmistakable, powerful pull, if something deep inside you is resonating so intensely that you can literally feel the energy moving through your entire body, seal this sacred moment right now. Anchor it in your soul, align yourself fully with this truth, comment "I receive it" below. Not as mere passive words, but as a powerful, affirmative declaration that your heart is fully ready for what God has perfectly prepared, ready for what is rapidly approaching, and ready for the complete clarity that will soon manifest powerfully in your reality. Because hear this final truth with the full, undeniable force of your soul. Your story is waking up. Your connection is powerfully rising again. Destiny is actively rearranging itself on your behalf. And God is speaking with unmistakable, absolute authority. They will take the step. They will come forward because losing you is no longer a possible option. Walk forward in faith, chosen one. Your moment is closer than you can possibly imagine.